Welcome to the Moody's Tire and Auto Football Extra.
Where honesty and service comes first.
Serving Williamson County for over 70 years. Visit us at Moody's Tire for all your tire and automotive needs.
Stop by and see us at 1600 Columbia Avenue.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome in to this edition of the Moody's Tire and Auto Football Extra. I'm Joe Williams from the Williamson Herald, along with our expert, Maurice Patton. And he doesn't gripe as much when we say that anymore. You've learned to accept that title.
I'm not accepting it. I'm just accepting that I can't do anything about it.
That works. You're married, aren't you? Or you have been, that's for sure. Husbands learn that quickly. We better go to football. We're at BGA today as the Wildcats getting ready for their first regional contest of the week. Maurice, they'll be hosting Davidson Academy on Friday night. And really, nobody knows a whole lot in Division II, especially in the Class A, about the Cats in this region because they just haven't played a bunch amongst themselves.
Yeah, they've been able to stay away from each other, which kind of makes the second half of the season kind of intriguing. It's a little bit of a grab bag because you don't know. I mean, in particular, we don't know a whole lot about Davidson because they're so different this time than they were last year. Last year they had Dakota Quinn at quarterback, big 6'7" kid whose dad is John Quinn, the coach up there and a former NFL quarterback, and he's gone, and I imagine that offense looks a little bit different when you don't have 6'7" slinging it all over the place. But what we do know is this bunch is pretty good.
They showed that last week at Page in a wild overtime contest. Yeah, this bunch is pretty good.
Yeah, it was close. It was as close. It was as good a ball game as we anticipated it would be, I think. And, you know, Clay Beathard went over there and did what Clay Beathard does, runs around and makes plays. Marcus Cawthorn did what Marcus Cawthorn does, catches balls from Clay Beathard. But we had another guy show up, apparently, a freshman. And looking at him out there, if you can see a number 8, he doesn't look like a freshman. Jalen Frierson stepped up big for the Wildcats the other night.
Caught a bunch of passes, 140-some-odd yards, I think, receiving.
Yeah, and, you know, when you don't have the running game coming along that BGA I still think is going to need at some point to be able to do something in the run game to bag some folks out of the box and make the passing game more effective, you've at least got to come up with another target besides Cawthorn. And so for Jalen to step in a big-time situation there against a 4A team, a pretty good 4A team in Page.
And, you know, the other thing is it'll get better for Cawthorn because now they've put Frierson in everybody's mind. That's the film everybody's going to be watching from here on out.
Absolutely, and you've got to watch it, and that means you can't shade an extra guy to Cawthorn's side. You got to play him a little bit more straight up, and that's going to open things up for him. And when you give Beathard a couple of choices out there, then plus the possibility of him turning it up himself, it really opens things up for them offensively.
The other really big game of the week comes up at Ravenwood, where the Raptors 4-1 after a week off to heal up, play McGavock. McGavock won a big regional contest last week at Overton. You were there for that game. These are the last two undefeated teams in Regions 3-6A. Whoever wins this is going to be a game up on the rest of the world. And I didn't think about it, reminded today, that if whoever wins this game, whoever wins this region, if you will, they get home field advantage until it's time to go to football.
Wow. That's
a huge game.
Well, that's big because it keeps you from having to go to Memphis at some point, or it takes the possibility of having to go to Memphis at some point out of the equation because, you know, 3A matches up with 4A, and 4A is 8 schools in the Memphis area. Yeah. So, I mean, you avoid that 3-hour drive for 4 rounds, and then you get to, ideally, make a 2-hour drive east, and I don't think they'll mind that too much. But this is a big game, like you said. McGavock beat Overton 20-17 in overtime in an ugly ball game. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, neither team really got a whole lot going offensively. 4 turnovers. Overton made 3 of them. McGavock scored 10 points off of 2 of them and ended the game with another one. So they were really opportunistic. I think Jay Gore is going to want to see them put together a little bit more offense. He's going to want their quarterback to be a little bit more effective and want to try to get a little more out of the running game against this Ravenwood team. And I think that's going to be their best defense, is being able to run the ball and keep the ball away from Ravenwood's offense with with Chris Rowland, with Connor Jeffries, and with whoever's at quarterback.
Yeah, right now, Andrew is day-to-day is what we're being told. But McCain Marrow has been very effective. The one game that he did play, threw the ball well when he needed to.
Yeah, I think he was 12 of 17 for 191, a couple of touchdowns in the win over at Franklin a couple of weeks ago before the off week. They had hoped that they would get Rapay back through the open week. Apparently the high ankle sprain is still an issue for him, and particularly for the style of ball that he plays. He's more of a running quarterback. So, you know, they want him at 100%, and if they can get by with Marrow at quarterback this week and give him an extra week off, I'm sure that would be the perfect situation for Will Hester in that bunch.
Of course, with that senior, if the bone's not sticking out, he's going to want to play come Friday night.
Well, he's going to want to play, but I'm sure that coaching staff is really tempering that and telling him, you know, we need to get this thing as close to 100% as we can, because we're not looking at a 10-game season. And they can say that looking back at last year. They played 15 games last year, so they're not looking at a 10-game schedule. And they want him, they'd rather have him for 8, 9, 10 than 6 and re-aggravate that thing, and he has to sit again, and they don't have another open date.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The other big one will be Clarksville coming down to face Centennial. The Cougars 2-0 or undefeated, maybe they're 3-0 in region. Let's see, they're in 5A. They're undefeated in the region.
No, because they just lost to Henry County last week.
Centennial did?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you said the Wildcats.
No, I said the Cougars.
Oh, well, never mind. Wrong Cats.
The Wildcats, on the other hand, did lose to.
Excuse me.
Did lose to Henry County last week. Henry County, 99-0. Their 3 wins so far. They have not allowed a score on defense. We'll get to them. But for this one, this is Clarksville's last chance to climb back into this thing. For Centennial, this is an opportunity to help make the last 2 weeks of this season extremely memorable.
No doubt. I mean, this is a big game for Centennial. Again, they have really distanced themselves from that Independence loss a few weeks ago, come up with a couple of big wins since then, including the win over Ravenwood, really on a little bit of a roll. They were off last week as well and gave them an opportunity to kind of reset, so to speak. And so Clarksville coming in here, as I was saying, they were undefeated until Henry County last week, and still a good ball club, and give Centennial a chance to pick up another good region win at home.
Another team that's still undefeated in that same region is Brentwood, and they'll go up to West Creek. And I go to Brentwood because with the rough start, Ron Crawford has that team undefeated in the region and sitting pretty for the playoffs. West Creek has been down this year, so we kind of we're expecting a Brentwood win. Maurice, what this does do is Brentwood has to go to Henry County in week 9 or 10, next to last week. Henry County has to come to Centennial. Oh, and I think the week before that, Centennial and Brentwood play. It's going to make the last 3 weeks really interesting in this bunch.
And you know, sometimes it's not when you win, but who you beat. And like you said, Brentwood got off to a little bit of a rough start, but they are undefeated in region play, and that's what's important at this point, especially, again, with the reclassification where overall wins and losses aren't that big. The top 4 teams out of each region from 5A down go to the playoffs. And so for Brentwood, even with the rough start, even with the youngsters that they're playing with, all they're trying to do is get into the playoffs, and if they can finish 1 or 2, maybe get a home game first 2 weeks. And so they are still in line to do all that right now.
And all of a sudden, they're right back in the mix, not just this year, but in years to come. And it's the Crawford magic.
Oh, you can't deny it.
You can't,
I mean, the man's pretty good.
You think?
Yeah.
Now, up the road, their neighbor has got a big game Friday night, too. They got this Brentwood Academy. The Eagles got to go out to Innsworth. And this is always a fun battle. Brentwood Academy riding high right now. They're kind of controlling that Division II AA region that they're in. Some very uncharacteristic losses for Innsworth already this season.
Yeah, but they picked up a big win Friday night at home against CPA, the defending 3A state champs. It was homecoming. It's a heck of a homecoming matchup right there. Pretty ambitious, but CPA goes up 14-0 at the half. Ensworth comes back with 24 in the second half and holds them scoreless. 24-14 win. Big win for Ensworth, I think. Gives them some confidence as they head into the second half of the season. That includes this Brentwood Academy game, McCallie, MBA later on. So they've still got some work ahead of them, but they feel a lot better heading into that 3-3 than 2-4.
Franklin gets back out to stretch it out a little more. They've got to go to Antioch. It'll be a road trip that's not quite as bad, but compared to the road trips last year, this is a long one.
And the thing is, it's tough getting from here to Antioch.
Oh, yeah,
that
you can't
time
get there
of day.
from here. Yeah.
You have to go to Hickory Hollow and start, definitely. Yeah. But, Franklin, they lost a couple weeks ago to Ravenwood. Been a little inconsistent. This is a chance for them to get up and get a good road win in region play. And again, I think so much of it at this point of the season is about confidence and feeling good about what you're doing, and they need a win to really feel good about what they're doing right now.
Some other games that are going on. Our friends down in Thompson Station Independent, Scott Blade and his crew, coming off of a week off, been very quiet. They've just done nothing but go along and win games. Now they're going to Stewart Creek. They're beginning to get into the meat of their regional schedule. Very fortunate on the front end. I think 5 of their first 6 games were at home, or 4 of their first 5 were at home. Now they hit that stretch where they pay for it. They're going to be on the road a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to balance out at some point, and this is a tough one. Stewart's Creek is playing some pretty good football right now. Quietly, 3rd season as a program, and they've played all varsity ball. David Martin has got those guys believing in themselves. They've won a couple of big games. They beat Columbia, beaten some other established programs, and if Indy doesn't go in there focused, they can come out of there with their feelings hurt, I think. And it'll be interesting to see if the quarterback, I've lost his name. Yeah, that's what happens when you don't play for 3 weeks. People just forget about you.
Exactly.
You know?
Sorry, Andrew, but
Bunch injured his elbow against Centennial. Hasn't played in the last 3 weeks. Hasn't been a problem. Adam Swayze stepped in there and guided him to 3 wins. A little unorthodox relative to the offense that they've run for the last couple of years under Scott Blade, but they are 5-0. They are ranked number 1 in the state in the Associated Press 5A poll, and this is a big game for them in region play, like you said.
And the emergence of Daniel Wright in the backfield has been huge. A couple of weeks ago against Summit, 200 yards, 5 touchdowns.
If you remember, we went to their final scrimmage against Franklin.
Yep.
And Charles had seen them the week before in a scrimmage, and he came back talking about Daniel Wright gives him something at the running back spot. You and I went down there and we saw him against Franklin, and we kind of said, if this guy does this all year with the passing attack that they've got, you got to watch out. And he has, and you do.
Yeah.
they are going to be a factor for 15, 16 weeks, I think.
I think you're probably right. Now, down the road on the very south end of the county, Summit will be at home taking on Laverne. This is also in Region 5A, and Mo, this is a Laverne team that had been expected to be at the very top of this region. They've struggled some.
Well, they've struggled some, but you got to look at this region, too. This region is a meat grinder. 5A is a meat grinder. It's going to be tough. Somebody good in this region isn't going to make the playoffs, I think. And, Laverne better go and take care of business against Summit. Now, the one thing, Laverne lost a really good receiver in the preseason, Princeton Fant. And I'm not sure what his injury was, but he got hurt in the preseason. I don't think he's played. I'm not sure if he's going to be back at all this year or not, but this is a fairly highly recruited kid. And, when you lose that kind of talent right out of the box, it kind of changes everything about the complexion of your ball club. Now, they do have a really good running back, Nick Jones, who went for 256 against somebody not too long ago, and Malik Gray as a linebacker who is a very highly recruited junior for him. So they've got some talent, but I would expect them to go into Summit and take care of business. But again, that's a win that they kind of need to get if they're Laverne. And Summit,
I'm telling you,
throw a wrench in things.
Exactly. Summit's very capable of winning that ball game.
Yeah, they could throw a wrench in some things. And the thing is, when you look at that Summit Ball Club with Brian Coleman, you feel like they're going to get somebody. And if you're Laverne, you just want to make sure it's not you.
Not me. Yeah, exactly right. Speaking of our other teams in the county, Fairview takes off to Cheatham County earlier today. I was reading on MoPattonSports.com about the way that Hunter Zimmerman, the quarterback at Fairview, has started that comeback. Starting to heat up, I think is the way you put it.
Yeah, this kid is he threw for 2,000 plus yards as a sophomore, and everybody's like, keep an eye on this kid. He's going to be something special. Battled through some injuries last year, particularly to his thumb. It's tough to throw a football with a bad thumb. Kind of battled through that. This year he kind of got knocked up and dinged up a little bit, but he's starting to come back. He threw for 200 down at Waverly. Had another good game last week against Hickman County, and he's got to perform for Fairview to open everything else up, I think. Rather than run to set up the pass, Fairview really passes to set up the run, and they back you out of the box, and then they kind of gas you with Jake Bethert, the cousin of Clay out here, who's out there now, moved into town over the summer. And that's kind of the way they set that offense up. But they are getting ready, I think, to go on a second-half run here. Their last 5 games are all in region play, and we've kind of gotten used to seeing Fairview in the playoffs the last few years, and I think they're going to be in there again this year, and it starts this week. Yeah,
I don't think we're going to see anything different there. Speaking of that kind of group, Page at home again this week, hosting a struggling Tullahoma team, and Tullahoma could be a great team, and I still would not want to have to go into Page this week because, let me tell you, those are going to be some angry Patriots. They're going to look to take it out on somebody.
I think you're absolutely right. I talked to Charles Rathbone earlier this week. He pointed out that, we're 4-2. We're 2 points away from being 6-0.
Yeah.
And I saw a certain video on a certain website where he might ought to be 5-1 anyway, but we'll let you decide. Check out the video from the Page BGA game last week. I don't want to say that too loud considering where I'm at.
Well, it's all done, and it's on the website at WilliamsonHerald.com.
But, Page has played really well, and they played really well even against BGA in a tough loss. And I think that, like you said, it may be wrong place, wrong time for Tullahoma this week.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be there. Final game we're going to take a look at, Grace Christian, who started their football program this year. Maurice, they've already got a couple of wins under their belt. They're kind of building. Rusty Smith's got them believing. The whole bunch out there is ready to go. But they got to go to Columbia Academy. And Columbia Academy is probably the top team in that region.
I think if you're Grace Christian, Columbia Academy is probably who you're looking at and trying to model yourself after, from the standpoint that it's a small school, it's a small program, but Columbia Academy has had some success playing against, the Moore counties and the Wayne counties and some of those folks down in that area. And I think if Grace Christian can kind of look at what they've been able to do, they can see what's out there for them. Now, this matchup this weekend is going to be a tough one for them, I think, because, again, Columbia Academy is playing awfully well right now.
They're playing awfully well, young, first-year program, but I think they learned something here. I think they're in a position to learn things that they can take forward.
Absolutely. I think, when you're playing with a young bunch and you're a young program, you try to take as much as a learning experience as you can, and I think this will be one for them.
This has been a long one. That's because there are 11 long games this week. Tell you what, when we say a full schedule, it's a full schedule, and we'll have details or results on all of them Friday night at www.williamsonherald.com. Charles Pulliam out doing the videos on Friday night. Maurice Patton's going out to cover. I'll be out, so will Doug Dyer. And all you got to do is keep watching the website or follow us on Twitter at WH Sports. It's really very simple. The rest of you guys will have your Twitter handles up so folks can follow you directly. In the meantime, we're going to get off this field and let them go to work.
Sounds good.
All right. For Maurice Patton and Charles Pulliam, I'm Joe Williams. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Moody's Tire and Auto Prep Football Extra.